Hey guys, Mr. Farmer here again with Chapter 28 from AutoCAD. We're already at Chapter 28. Chapter 28 is dimensioning. This is pretty important stuff. Correctly dimensioning your drawing is critical. If you make a fantastic drawing but then you don't dimension it well, you've kind of wasted your time, and whatever you send to the manufacturer, they're going to depend on your dimensions to be correct. So Chapter 28, dimensioning. We've got a lot of chapter objectives here. Number one, first and foremost, be able to use the dimension command, or DIM for short, the dim command. And then there's a bunch of subsets to that. So there's dim linear, dim continue, dim baseline, angular, diameter, radius, leaders, quick dimension, and then we're going to talk about tolerances, and then know the possible methods for editing dimensions and dimensioning text. So lots to cover here. We're going to dive right in. So first off, with the definition, dimensions. Dimensions should be created on a separate layer named dimensions or similar, and dimensions should be created in a model space, right? So we're not dimensioning on the layout. You don't put your dimensions on here. You put them on your model, and then they show up on your layout when you go through that process, right? Let's see here. Okay. Main components of a dimension are, number one, the dimension line, number two, the extension lines, number three, the dimension text, and number four, the arrowheads or the tick marks. So let me just show you what this looks like. I'm going to use the dim command, just DIM. There's two different ways you can do this. I can roll over this line here, like just put my pointer on the line, and you'll see that this 8 inches pops up right there. So I can click, and then I can move this up and down and place it again with another click based on where I want it. So you'll notice this is the dimension text, 8 inches, and it's very, very precise. It's 4 decimal places. I don't know that I would keep that as 4 decimal places. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go back here. Let's use, you want to use a continuous line here, and let's make them white. Okay, so dim. There we go. That looks better. You wouldn't dimension with hidden lines. That would be completely ridiculous, right? So 8 inches. And let's fix our precision here. Let's just make it like 2 decimal places. Okay. Very good. All right. So we've got our dimension. These are the extension lines. See these 2 vertical lines right here? Those are extension lines. They show where the dimension starts and stops. And you know that they're extension lines because they don't actually touch the shape. See that gap there? That's what clues you into the fact that those are extension lines. These are your leader lines. They've got the arrowheads or the tick marks to show you where the dimension goes in between. And then, of course, this is your dimension text like we talked about. There's 2 different ways to do this. As I was saying a while ago, you can click the line itself, or if you don't want to do that, you can use Dimension Tool, and you can go point to point and then drag it down, and you end up with the same final product, right? So you can click the line. You can pick the object, rather, to be dimensioned, or you can pick 2 extension line placements, right? So I'll do another one here, dimension from here to here. That's a bad example. I can dimension from this point to this point, right? And I can actually move where I'm going to place that, so it's not sitting on my part right there. And then I could also do the same thing by selecting a line. So I'm going to select this line here and this line here, and my extension lines go all the way to those points, right? So lots of different ways to do this. Dimensioning is semi-automatic. So what that means, the textbook defines semi-automatic, means when you invoke a command to create a linear dimension, AutoCAD only requires that you pick an object or specify the extension line origins like we just talked about, and pick the location of the dimension line, right? It's just click, 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 click. You don't have to type a whole lot. It's super easy. Rule of thumb, don't dimension to hidden lines. You would never dimension like between these 2 hidden lines, because when you measure things in real life, you can't measure to a hidden line. You can only measure to hard surfaces, so avoid that. Let's keep going. Okay. Because the extension line origins are associated with the geometry, right? These are your extension lines. The dimension text automatically updates if the geometry is moved. So if I was to modify this shape, if I was to change the height of this part, the way that it's drawn, this dimension would automatically update, is what that's trying to say. So let's say I draw a line here, and then I'm going to trim this component off. Well, that was a bad example because that's a sectional view. But if I was to modify this shape and move this side in, right, this 8 inches would automatically update. Okay? Dimensioning variables are used to control the way dimensions are created. Dimensioning variables can be used to control features such as the text or arrow size. You can do this by going to dimension styles or dim style, right? And here you can modify the styles that you're using for your dimension styles, right? So there's a standard, and then you can modify the text size, the symbols, the arrows. You can change how you want it to look. I'll give you an example of where this comes into play at. So let's say I'm going to my saddle drawing here, and I'm going to dimension, let's see, dimension style. Let's say I've got standard style is set, right? So I'm going to dimension the width of this object. I'm going to go from this point to this point and click, and you're like, where's the dimension at? I see the extension lines, I see the leader lines. Well, the problem is the dimension is very, very small based on the scale of this drawing, right? So it's there, it's just itty bitty. So I can change that by going to dimension style, right? Dimension style. And I can modify the size of the text. I can make the text height, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch. And then apply that, right? And when I go to dimension this again, hopefully, well, that didn't work, did it? Dimension style, modify, text height. All right. So apparently I didn't modify it big enough. Let's try dim style again. We're going to modify. We'll make this, instead of 0.75, we'll make it, I don't know, 3.5 inches. This is a gigantic drawing. And we'll dimension from here, yeah, there we go, to here. Now you can actually see the dimension. And you'll notice the arrows, see the arrows now are a little bitty? So we can actually change those as well within dimension style. We can modify and change the size of the arrows, right? The arrow size is 0.18. We could make that, I don't know, 2.5. Okay. Close, and now you can see the arrows actually show up there. So that's an example of where you would use dimension styles to modify some stuff. All right, okay, so the tool that I use most of the time is just dim, right? D-I-M. We'll get into why you would use that. But you'll notice there's a bunch of different ones here. There's dimension linear, dimension align, dimension continue, and there's all kinds of these dimension tools, right? So let's start with dim linear. Dim linear, right? This creates a horizontal, vertical, or rotated dimension. So these 3 dimensions here are linear dimensions. I could also put one here, right? That's a dim linear. And you can also do an angled dimension. So dim linear, I can go from here to here, right? Uh-oh. Dim linear. I can go from here to here and create an angled dimension. Right? Click, click. There you go. You can create an angled dimension if you want to do that. There's also rotated. If you want the dimension line to be drawn at an angle instead of vertical or horizontal, use this option. So within dim linear, within dim, you can rotate, right? So there's angular, baseline, continue, ordinate, align, distribute, that kind of stuff. So you can do an angular dimension if you want to do that. Dim aligned, so we'll do dim aligned. Dimension aligned is aligned at the same angle as the selected object or the extension line. So here's what I was trying to do just a second ago. If I do dimension aligned and go from here to here, that gives me that angled piece, right? That's dimension aligned because it's aligned with the angle of the part, okay? Dimension aligned. There's also dimension baseline, so this is pretty useful. Dimension baseline is allows you to create a dimension that uses the extension line from the origin from a previously created dimension, right? The previous dimension's first extension line is used for the baseline dimension's first point, right? So here's what this looks like. Let me just delete these for clarity. And let's say I'm going to dimension from here to here, right? And I want to use this extension line again. So I can say dim baseline or dimension base, and it uses that same extension line, right? So now I can go from here to here. See how these two things share an extension line now? There we go. That is a shared extension line. Now this isn't a good way to dimension things, but you get the idea. Here, I'll give you another example. Let's say dimension, dimension from here to here is 3 inches. And then if I want to share this extension line, I can say dimension baseline, and it automatically grabs that extension line that I just had, right? So there's an example of where you would use that, okay? Dimension continue. Dimension continue is kind of like dimension baseline, except it builds upon the next object. So I'll give you an example of where you would use this. Let's go, kind of going all over the place here. Let's go over here and let's just draw, let's draw a part. Something like that, right? So here's where you would use dimension continue. I could say dimension from here to here, right? There's a dimension. Now my dimension text looks too big, doesn't it? And then I can say dimension continue, right? Oop. Dimension continue, and it builds off of this, right? Let's see here. Yeah, it builds off that piece, so I can just add the next piece, and you can actually keep going over and over and over again. So it builds off the extension line of the previous dimension, right? You can't do this with diameter. You cannot use dimension continue or dimension baseline with diameter. It's only with straight lines, right? Dimension space. The dim space command automatically spaces parallel, linear, or angular dimensions equally. So let's try this. Boom, boom. There we go. It equally spaces these dimensions. When you have a bunch of dimensions piling up on your page, you can use the dimension space to kind of space those out evenly. Dimension angular. So let's say we want to dimension this angle here. We want to know what angle that's at. You can say dim angular. Right. Click here. And here. Well, come on. Let's try this and this. I think my snap is turned on. Let's try this again. Angular. That's much better. There it is. So that's how you would select like an angle. If I was going to do an angled dimension, that's at a 60-degree angle, so that's dim angular. Very good. There's dimension diameter. So let's go up here where we have a circle. I can say dimension diameter, right? And I can click that circle, and that gives me the diameter of that circle. The diameter there is 1 inch. Diameter, and the diameter of this one is a 1/2 inch. You only use diameter when you have at least, when you have a full circle, right? I wouldn't use diameter right here, right? See how that's just a half circle? For that, we would use dimension radius, and it would give you the radius of that point, because it's technically not a diameter, it's not a full circle. Hopefully that makes sense. Dim radius is used to create a dimension for anything like an arc or a half a circle. Anything less than half a circle, use a radius, okay? Okay, so now you've seen all of these individual, like, dimension linear, angular, diameter, base, aligned, all the different dim commands. So what I get in the habit of doing is just use DIM. DIM, and it combines all of these. So depending on what you pick, it's smart enough to know what you're trying to dimension. The DIM command is relatively new. It's a new dimensioning command that combines several older dimensioning commands and offers options for editing the dimension text and for organizing the dimension lines. So it's like everything built into one. Just the DIM tool. Get in the habit of using DIM except for very special circumstances, okay? All right, what if you have, I don't have one here, but what if you have a part and it's this long rod, right? Let's say it's 14 feet long and 1 inch wide. If you're going to dimension this, right, you wouldn't use the dimension command because it looks a little weird. You would use dimension jog line, okay? Dimension jog line creates a break, right? Well, let me just read you the definition here. Creates a jog line or a break in an existing linear dimension. This technique is typically used in cases where it's not practical to draw the entire length of the object, and a break line is created to indicate the object is longer than depicted. So I'll give you an example of what that looks like since I don't have one pulled up. This bar right here is 230 inches long and it's only like a ½ inch wide, right? So they've broken this because it's a uniform cross section. And then this little bloop, it looks like a heartbeat kind of thing. This is your dimension jog line. That indicates that this dimension isn't what you see on the page. It's actually the full length of the part. There's another example right there in isometric view. Or something like this. This is 116 inches long, so they put a little dimension jog line in there. Very good. That is dim jog line. Very good. There's dimension jogged, which is basically the same thing that we just talked about, except it's for a radius or a diameter. For an extremely large radius, it may not be possible or practical to create a dimension line, so you use the jogged radius dimension line, which is the same thing we just talked about, except it's a radius, right? Dimension center. Dim center, so let's do a circle here. That's not a circle. Here we go. There's a circle. Dimension center creates this little center point here, and it's actually technically, I guess, a center mark. So this is an old command. This isn't something you would use very often. And they used to use this to make center marks, but it's a whole lot easier and it's a whole lot more practical just to use the center mark command because then it creates the full crosshair, right? So dimension center, know what it is, but know that center mark is way easier than using dim center. There's also dimension break. So dimension break command allows you to create a space in the extension line that causes any intersections. So you'll notice, like, right here we've got some stuff that's intersecting. If we dimensioned the rest of this out, right here to here, see how these two extension lines break over each other? That's technically not right. You're not supposed to do that. So you can use this dimension break command to actually, let's see here, to actually put a gap there. See that gap? So the extension lines are still where they need to be, but that gap is there so that you don't have intersecting dimensions. Let me give you another example of this. We'll dimension from here to here, and then we'll dimension, let's see, we'll dimension from here to here. All right, so once again, these two extension lines are crossing over one another. You don't want that, so I can use dimension break, and it'll put a gap where it needs to put a gap, right? Leader. So a leader is essentially indicating something that you're trying to show. So if I wanted to show the circle or whatever, I can put a leader in it, right? We'll put it right there, and it's like an arrow, right? You can put a note there. Oh, leader. Good, good. There is my leader, and I can put text here, so I could write a note about that, like piece drill out, right? I could do something like that. That's what the leader is for. There's also Quick Leader or Q Leader. Quick Leader creates a leader with or without text, similar in appearance to the leader created with Leader, with the original Leader tool. However, Quick Leader allows you to specify preset parameters for the configuration of the text. So if you don't want to change your text each time, if you want it to be something consistent that you're going to use across your drawing, you can use Quick Leader because it has those preset stored values. There is MultiLeader. You can place the arrowhead first and the tail first. You can reverse the order in which you do things. That's MultiLeader. Gives you a little bit more flexibility. There is a lot to cover in this chapter. There's like 60 pages worth of dimensioning tools. As always, I recommend you take a look at the book before you take your quiz. Scan through here, take some notes, highlight things that you find useful and relevant. It'll help you out later on. Dimension ordinate, dim ordinate. Dimension ordinate dimensions give an x datum or a y datum distance between object features and a reference point on the geometry treated as the origin, usually the lower left corner of the part. So if we had a part, I'm going to try to do this relatively quickly here. If we had a part with lots of little holes drilled in it, I should use an array to do this, but I don't have the time right now. All right, you can use dimension ordinate, right, to specify this start point right here. And that is your lower left-hand corner. Uh-oh. I went ahead and cut out a piece here so you could see this. So we're going to do dimension ordinate, right? And we're going to put it at this lower left-hand corner. That is our origin point, so that all of our dimensions can be relative to that point. So dimension, I'm going to go relative to that origin. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't want to do an angular one. How could we fix this? Well, we could use dim linear. Dimension linear, I could go from here to here, right? And that gives a dimension relative to that origin. And then I could build on that with dimension continue, right? And I could go up here and all the way to the top of the part. You get the idea, right? That is dimension ordinate when you need to place an origin or a datum, right? Tolerance. The tolerance command produces the symbol dialog box and the geometric tolerance dialog box. So this is all of your dimensioning symbols, right? They're placed in the feature control frame, or FCF for short. The frame is composed of a minimum of 2 sections and a maximum of 3 different sections. So let's say we've got this part with these holes drilled in it, and this hole is supposed to be drilled out at, I don't know, let's see, dimension diameter. We'll say this hole is supposed to be drilled out 1.0822 inches. Well, obviously it's not going to be exact. It's not going to be perfect. So we can put a tolerance on this, right? We can put a tolerance, TOL, and we can say the diameter, let's see here. The diameter is going to be plus 5 thousandths minus 5 thousandths of an inch, right? And we can put this here. Okay, that means that this hole could be drilled out 1.0822 inches, or it could be 5 thousandths of an inch above that, or 5 thousandths of an inch below that. So you've got your symbols, you've got your tolerances, and you can also put text with that, right? So within tolerances, you can put some text in here. You can do all kinds of different symbols. There's symbols included here. There's leader lines, there's surface finishes, perpendicularity, pretty much anything you would need there for tolerances, right? That is tolerance. And let's see what else we've got here. Editing dimensions. So if you need to edit a dimension, one of the most effective ways to do that is to use your grips. Any of the grip options like stretch, move, rotate, scale, or mirror will work depending on the type of dimension. The grips appear at several locations on the dimension when you activate grips by selecting the appropriate command prompt. So just like we covered in the past few chapters, grips come in handy here with dimensions as well. There's also dimension text edit, allows you to change the position or origin of the text. And then there's dimension edit, allows you to change the angle of the extension lines, or edit the dimension text, or pretty much whatever else you need to do. And then you can put custom text. So let's say this 1.4181, right? you can actually put custom text here using the edit tool, right? So let me give you an example of that. All right, an example. So let's say we wanted this 5 inches here. Let's say we wanted to write that this was a critical dimension. If I just double click that and write critical, yes, it'll save it. If you want to make sure you've got this right, you're going to use the arrow keys. Anything outside of these brackets is recognized as text, so keep it like that. And then, let's see, there's a ton more to cover in here, but this video is already quite lengthy. You've got a lot of exercises for dimensioning. Take your time on these. The key is making sure you get quality dimensions. This looks incredibly disorganized. Never do your dimensions like this. This is very bad. Let me show you what a properly dimensioned multi-view looks like. Let's pull one up here. Yeah, let's do this. So here's a properly dimensioned multi-view, right? You notice they all start from the same datum. Looks like they use dimension ordinate on this. We've got stacked dimensions that are spaced out nicely. We've got the leaders going to the diameters. This looks pretty good, right? These are all dimensioning tools. So same as always, be sure and read through the book, scan through the book before you take your quiz. There's a lot to cover on this one. We're going to practice dimensions quite a bit because it is so critical. If you have questions, feel free to send me an email or get with me in class and we can go over a topic that needs to be reviewed. And as always, thanks for watching.